In light of Suicide Prevention Month, I'm going to talk about probably the most important intervention in all of mental health, the crisis response plan. There are roughly 50,000 suicides a year in America, something like one every 11 minutes. Treating suicide starts with creating a life-saving strategy through a living and breathing crisis response plan. After that, it's all about identifying and coming up with the strategies to overcome the drivers of suicidality, treating the underlying diagnoses and mental illnesses, teaching people how to pull themselves out of emotional crisis, things like that. Suicidality is a progression from suicidal thoughts to planning, including fantasizing, which then leads to intent and gathering means or lethal means. A crisis response plan intervenes at all levels, which is why it makes it so successful. The crisis response plan was designed to be on an index card that you pull out when in emotional crisis or experiencing suicidal ideation. I've seen it put on the back of pictures of loved ones, on post-it notes affixed to the method of choice, saved to people's phones as a background, or kept in their photo gallery. It's a person's plan, and creativity is always encouraged. A crisis response plan has 5 headers and covers 5 topics. Those include the warning signs, the things that you can do on your own, who you can call when in crisis, even just to talk, the crisis response professionals that you can reach out to, and ways to reduce access to lethal means when you're at your greatest risk. You will write on the CRP at the top, warning signs, and you identify your warning signs. They often comprise of psychological, biological, and social warning signs, and the things that you can do on your own to target these warning signs. Some examples of common warning signs are: suicide thoughts are oftentimes a major warning sign. They are cognitive distortions that feed distorted core beliefs, hopelessness, helplessness, or worthlessness. So those suicidal thoughts. One that we see a lot, or that I've seen a lot, is the world would be better off without me. I should just end it all. From a biological based or somatic based perspective, I get headaches and my heart starts racing. Social. A big one is isolating. I start to isolate, and that leads to not leaving the house and snowballs into depression. The next header on there will be things that I can do on my own. They are individualized interventions that a person can do to overcome the warning signs that they come up with. For the thought the world would be better off without me, you can walk yourself through what a loved one would say to you if they were there. So what would a loved one say to me? You can soothe your inner child. What would you say to your inner child if they were having those thoughts? A major thing that we see with suicidal thoughts is that when people are in pain, they start to convince themselves that their world would be better off without them. And that's never, ever, 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 ever the case. Never. The biological or somatic symptoms, your nervous system is becoming overwhelmed with emotional crisis. It spills over into your body. The body really does keep the score. Well, we see things like headaches and heart racing. The easy, not mentally intensive interventions are important here. So go walk on some carpet on the grass while working on your breathing. So that heel toe, slow walking while working on your breathing, I've seen it work. You can do progressive muscle relaxation. So you start by tightening and tensing your forehead, then your eyes, then your cheeks, and then your jaw, then your shoulders, then your arms, and on down, and focus on that release. You can do polyvagal exercises, which I wholeheartedly endorse and plan on talking about at length. I think that polyvagal exercises are the bee's knees. An example is tugging on your ear. Look straight ahead, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, and just tug on your hair or on your ear for 10, 15 seconds. Relax your shoulders again, take that deep breath, tug on your other ear. Do it a couple times. What it does is it engages your ventral vagus nerve that sends that calming relief and that calming response through your nervous system, through your body. It really is effective. A lot of the times people don't even notice that that it's gone. It's just stuff's gone. Isolating, the social. So you call your people, make plans, get out of the house, do something novel. It's hard when we're depressed, but you can do it. You know, something, having that thought, I can't kill myself today because I have to go have coffee with my best friend tomorrow. Sometimes it's those little things keep us around. They keep us around for that minute, that hour, and then next thing we know, we're just moving on with their life. The next topic that you would put on the crisis response plan is people you can call. So you don't have to talk about suicide or your struggles. You can, and that's great if you have that person, but you don't have to. It really is just intervening long enough to pull yourself out of that crisis. And sometimes, talking to a friend, talking to a loved one, getting on social media really helps create that stopgap. So you want to give yourself time for your cognitive and physical faculties to come back online. The people you can call your mom, you would put on there, call my mom, or your mom and her phone number, your dad and their phone number, a sibling, a loved one, anybody. The creator of the CRP intervention really stressed putting down the number of the person on the CRP. Personally, I trust you. I trust people. I think they know how to get a hold of their people. It's up to you. The next topic is crisis professionals. A crisis professional would be like a therapist, a doctor, sometimes even clergy members. Even though that can be a major, that in and of itself can be a warning sign. Reaching out to your priest or your pastor for the final thoughts or final wishes or things like that. That's something separate. However, a pastor, clergy member, they can be great, they can be awesome, and they have that training to help work people through crises most of the time. Other ones, there's always something. You can call the crisis line, which is 988. Their 800 number is 800-273-8255. Veterans can press 1. You can even do the text line, 741-741. Then they know what they're doing. They will just talk to you. But if you have an identified plan and you have access to means, I would expect a knock on your door. That law enforcement officer or county mental health team might show up at your door, which they should, and that's okay. People really do care about you, and they want you here. And if it takes that intervention, it really sucks in the moment, but it is what it is. Whatever you got to do to keep yourself here that next day, that next month, that next year. Things might be really tough for you right now, but you might find that loved one, you might find that right person, and 5 years down the road, it's just a distant memory. The next portion is the most important. The ways you can limit access to lethal means. Literally write down ways that you can limit access to lethal means. People shouldn't have access to their lethal means when they are in suicide crisis. It doesn't mean that they can't ever have access to those things, but they shouldn't when it's in crisis. I think everybody can rationally agree with that statement. Also, many times a disruptor or something to create time and space between the person and their lethal means can be really successful. A little bit on firearms. Firearms access is a constitutional right. I have talked to so many Americans that have refused to talk to their provider about their suicidal thoughts because they're afraid that they're going to lose their firearms. It creates a major barrier to treatment. But then again, on the other hand, there were 27,000 documented firearm suicides in 2023. You don't have to get rid of your firearms forever. You don't have to give them up to the law unless you're ordered to do so. But most will agree that when somebody is in emotional crisis, they should protect themselves from themselves, as they are the greatest threat to themselves in that moment. If that's still not an option for you, we can discuss disruptors, things that you can do to limit your own access or get in the way of you acting. Disassembling a firearm, putting a picture of a loved one on the muzzle, using gun locks, changing sex. Well, I'll get into that here in a minute. But the main point is, there's always something that you can do as that disruptor. Here are some common examples of ways to reduce access to lethal means for the more common ways that people complete suicide. So for firearms, temporarily giving guns to a trusted friend or a family member. Change safe codes and give the friend or a family member that the combination of the safe and lock yourself out. Like I said, you don't have to lock yourself out forever, but while you're in that depressive episode, while you're going through what you're going through, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your loved ones to do the right thing. You can disassemble firearms and, and and have them all over the house. Take those firing pins out. You could tape a picture of a loved one to the muzzle. There's gun locks. There's tons of things that you can do to create time and space between you and that firearm in that moment. Pills. One way that we see a lot is overdosing or attempted overdosing. Don't keep lethal doses of medication in the house. You can keep your meds in your trunk and just get what you need for you, right? For that day. You can talk to your prescriber. They can, a lot of times they can prescribe in pill pockets or pill pop-out pockets or in a daily packet, and you just have one or two at a time. The most important thing is reaching out, talking to somebody. Don't be afraid to have those conversations with your providers, because they have the training. It's not the first time that they've had that conversation. You can have family members dispense your meds. You can put pictures of loved ones on your pill bottles. I've seen a ton of different things. They even have lock boxes that will dispense your meds like on a timer, and you need a key or something like that to get into it at other times. Vehicles. I've worked with a lot of people that have their method of choice is their vehicle. Running their vehicle off the road, running it off of a cliff, running it into another vehicle. Vehicles tend to be a major method of choice. You can tape a picture of a loved one to the dashboard, pull the vehicle over and phone a support person. Avoid the places that are in your planning. So if you plan to drive off a certain bridge, I guess you time to find another route. Things like that. Stopping the vehicle. I've talked to people that bring their dogs with them. Be careful in the summer with leaving dogs in their vehicle, but I've talked to people that bring their pets with them in the vehicle because they're less likely to complete suicide if their dog is in the car. Hanging. I've worked with a lot of clients that's their method of choice as well. So you can tape a picture of loved ones to the identified hanging device. So the big thing is identifying that hanging device and use a disruptor. You could duct tape a whole roll of duct tape around it if you have to. Get rid of them. Do you really need that rope? Do you really need that identifying thing that you have used to hang yourself? I mean, obviously there are ropes and cords and everything all over the place, but a lot of the times we've seen that it will be a specific tie, a specific rope, a specific thing, and the most important thing to do is not have access to that. The main thing with reducing access or limiting access to lethal means is either literally limiting access to those means or creating those disruptors. That's a crisis response plan. Anybody that's experiencing suicidality owes it to themselves to have one. We could save a ton of lives if mental health providers, if everybody was trained to do them, and at the first instance that somebody starts talking about their suicidality, if they had a crisis response plan, maybe they still might be here. And that's my gift to the world. Thanks for listening.